The distress beacon tore through space at speeds that defied comprehension. Nira's slender fingers trembled as she activated the emergency broadcast system. Around her, the research vessel Luminous Path shuddered under another weapon's impact. Sparks flew from damaged consoles and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled the air. All frequencies, she whispered into the communicator, her pale blue skin glistening with fear sweat. This is Etherian research vessel Luminous Path. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Requesting immediate assistance. Our shields are failing. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. The ship lurched violently. Nira grabbed her station to avoid being thrown across the bridge. Through the viewport, she could see 6 massive warships surrounding them. The Ravager Collective had found them in deep space, far from any Galactic Union patrol routes. Their vessel was meant for peaceful research, not combat. They had no weapons, only basic shields that were now at 7% capacity. Commander Terrell staggered across the tilting deck. His large eyes, adapted for Athari's dim sunlight, were wide with terror. Did anyone respond to our distress call? The signal went out, Commander, Nira replied, checking her instruments. But something went wrong. The transmission relay was damaged. The beacon bounced through an unstable wormhole connection. I don't know where it ended up. Another impact. The lights flickered. Someone screamed from the engineering section below. The Luminous Path carried 42 crew members, all researchers and scientists. Not one of them had ever seen violence before this day. The Galactic Union had enjoyed 3 centuries of peace. War was something from history files, not reality. 6 minutes until shield collapse, announced Pilot Paul from his station. His voice cracked with fear. They're preparing boarding equipment. Everyone knew what that meant. The Ravager Collective didn't take prisoners for ransom. They took prisoners for sport. Stories spread through the peaceful galaxy about ships that vanished, crews that were never found. The Galactic Union pretended these pirates didn't exist, because acknowledging them meant acknowledging that their perfect peace was a lie. Nira sent the distress call again. And again. Her hands moved automatically across the controls, adjusting frequencies, boosting power. The damaged relay system sparked and hissed, but she refused to stop. Somewhere, someone had to hear them. Someone had to care. Far across the galaxy, in a system marked with red warning symbols on every Galactic Union star chart, the signal arrived. Earth's orbital defense network detected the transmission immediately. The automated systems flagged it as an unknown language, unknown origin. But the distress markers were universal. Someone was dying. Someone needed help. Within minutes, the message reached the United Earth Coalition headquarters. Admiral Richard Hayes studied the translated transmission with a frown. He was an older man, gray-haired and weathered, with eyes that had seen too many wars. It came from outside our system, his communication officer reported, through some kind of wormhole relay. The signal wasn't meant for us, sir. It was meant for something called the Galactic Union. The ones who quarantined us? Hayes asked. Yes, sir. They classified Earth as too dangerous for contact. Called us a Class 9 Deathworld. That was 40 years ago. We've been isolated ever since. Hayes read the message again. Peaceful researchers. Under attack. Shields failing. He thought about his own daughter, who worked on a research station orbiting Mars. If she sent a distress call, would he want someone to ignore it because of politics? How far? He asked. 3 days at maximum jump speed. Sir, we'd be violating the quarantine agreement. The Galactic Union explicitly forbade us from leaving our system. They explicitly forbade us from joining their little club, Hayes corrected. They didn't ask us to ignore people dying. He pressed the communication button. Get me Captain Anne Frost. Tell her to prep the Defiant Hope for immediate departure. Full combat loadout. 30 minutes later, the military vessel Defiant Hope detached from Earth's orbital shipyard. Unlike the sleek, curved ships the Galactic Union preferred, the human vessel looked brutal and angular. It was built for function, not beauty. Heavy armor plating covered every surface. Weapon systems bristled from multiple hardpoints. The ship could survive impacts that would obliterate any civilian craft. Anne Frost sat in the command chair, reviewing the mission briefing. She was 42 years old, career military with close-cropped dark hair and a scar across her left cheek from a training accident years ago. Her crew of 200 waited at their stations ready for whatever came next. Navigation. Plot the fastest course to these coordinates, she ordered. Engineering, I want jump drives at 110%. We're going to push hard. Captain, her first officer said quietly. We don't know what we're flying into. This could be a trap. We could be starting an interstellar incident. Anne looked at the distress message one more time. She thought about the 42 researchers who were probably already dead. She thought about humanity's long history of helping those who couldn't help themselves, even when it was dangerous, even when it was stupid. Then we'll deal with the consequences, she said. Engage jump drive. Let's go save some lives. The defiant hope tore a hole in space-time and vanished. 3 days later, Nira huddled in a storage compartment with 5 other survivors. The Ravagers had boarded the luminous path 6 hours after their shields failed. Most of the crew was dead. The pirates moved through the ship slowly, hunting the remaining Etherians for entertainment. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Nira held her breath. Beside her, young researcher Lynn trembled uncontrollably. They had no weapons, no hope. The distress call had gone unanswered. Then everything changed. A sound split the air unlike anything Nira had ever heard. It was deep and primal, like thunder-given voice, weapons fire, screaming. The ship shook with impacts that dwarfed anything the Ravagers had done. The storage compartment door exploded inward. Nira screamed. A figure stood in the doorway, backlit by emergency lighting. It was massive, easily 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, and heavy. It wore armor that looked like it could stop a meteor. The helmet visor reflected Nira's terrified face back at her. Etherian survivors? The voice was strange, coming through a translator. Deep and rough. Nira couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The figure stepped closer. Slowly, carefully, it reached up and removed its helmet. Nira stared at the face of a human for the first time. Forward-facing predator eyes, strong jaw, teeth visible when the creature spoke. Everything about it screamed danger. "We received your distress call," Captain Anne Frost said gently. "You're safe now," but Nira didn't feel safe. She felt like prey staring at an apex predator. She felt like her ancestors must have felt when something bigger and stronger found them in the darkness. She fainted. Medical Officer Nira woke to find herself in an alien environment. The walls were a strange gray color and everything felt heavy. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Her body felt like it was being pressed down by an invisible weight. "Easy there," a voice spoke through a translator device. "You're experiencing 1.2 times your normal gravity. We've adjusted this medical bay as much as we can, but our ship is built for Earth standards." Nira turned her head slowly. A human female sat beside her bed holding a small device that showed various readings. This human had longer hair than the armored one from before, pulled back into something called a ponytail. Her skin was a warm brown color, and her eyes were kind despite being positioned like a predator's. "I'm Dr. Lisa Martin," the human said. "You passed out earlier. Combination of stress and seeing us for the first time. It happens. We're not what your people expected. You're Deathworlders," Nira whispered. "From Earth, the forbidden planet." Lisa smiled, and Nira saw those omnivore teeth again. Sharp canines designed for tearing meat. She felt her heart rate spike. And the monitor beside her bed began beeping rapidly. "Please don't eat me," Nira said before she could stop herself. The human looked genuinely hurt for a moment, then sad. "We don't do that. We haven't done that for thousands of years. We're civilized now." She paused. "Well, mostly civilized. We still have our moments." Nira tried to process this. The medical bay door opened and Commander Terrell entered, moving slowly in the increased gravity. He looked exhausted but alive. Behind him came Paul and Lynn, along with 3 other survivors from the luminous path. "How many?" Nira asked. "How many of us made it?" 14, Terrell said quietly. "Out of 42. The humans arrived in time to save us, but they couldn't save everyone." The room fell silent. 14 survivors. 28 dead. Nira felt tears streaming down her face. In 300 years of Galactic Union peace, the Etherians had forgotten what loss felt like. Now they remembered. Dr. Lisa handed Nira a tissue. The gesture was oddly gentle for such a dangerous creature. "I'm sorry we didn't get there sooner. Captain Frost pushed the engines beyond safe limits to reach you. We came as fast as we could." Over the next several hours, the Etherian survivors learned about their rescuers through careful, tentative interactions. The humans moved around them slowly, speaking softly, clearly trying not to frighten them further. But everything about humans was frightening. Engineer Paul watched through a window as human crew members worked in the cargo bay. One of them, A male with dark skin and muscular arms lifted a container that the manifest listed as 150 kilograms. He lifted it with one hand while adjusting his portable computer with the other. "That's not possible," Paul muttered. "That weight would crush my spine." "Your planet has 0.6 standard gravity," a voice said behind him. Paul jumped and turned to find a human male standing there. This one wore an engineering uniform with the name David stitched on the chest. "Earth has 1.2. We evolved to move heavy things. Our bones are about 3 times denser than yours. Our muscles have different fiber composition." Paul stared. "You're biological tanks." David laughed, which was a strange barking sound. "Never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess so. Want to see the engine room? I noticed you're an engineer. Thought you might appreciate our drive system." Despite his fear, Paul's curiosity won. He followed David through corridors that felt too tall, too heavy, too angular. Everything on this ship was built to withstand punishment. Even the walls looked like they could survive a weapon's impact. The engine room was massive. David explained the fusion drive system, the jump field generators, the backup power cores. Plural, the ship had redundant systems for its redundant systems. "Why so many backups?" Paul asked. "Because things break in combat," David said simply. "We design for things to go wrong. If the primary system fails, secondary kicks in. If secondary fails, tertiary. We learned the hard way that you can't assume everything will work perfectly. The Galactic Union doesn't build ships like this," Paul said. "We build for efficiency and peace. We build for war," David admitted. "Even our civilian ships have military-grade components. Earth's history wasn't peaceful. We fought each other for thousands of years before we unified. Old habits die hard." In the dining facility, Science Officer Lynn experienced human food for the first time. A crew member named Robert offered her something called an apple. It was red and round and apparently grew on Earth plants. "It's safe for you," Robert assured her. "Our doctor checked. Most of our fruits are actually less toxic than your people's food." Lynn took a small bite. The taste was strange but pleasant, sweet with a slight tartness. "This is good. Glad you like it. Want to try some bread? It's a staple food for humans. Made from ground wheat seeds." As Lynn ate, she asked questions. Robert answered patiently, explaining Earth's diverse agriculture, the thousands of crops humans cultivated, the way they modified plants through selective breeding over generations. "You shaped your world," Lynn said slowly. "The Galactic Union adapts to planets. You made your planet adapt to you." "Survival," Robert said with a shrug. "Earth tried to kill us constantly. Droughts, floods, ice ages, plagues. We either learned to control our environment or we died. Our ancestors chose to fight back." In the observation deck, Commander Terrell spoke with Captain Anne Frost. The human commander stood by the window, looking out at the stars. The Defiant Hope was escorting the damaged luminous path toward Etherian space, a journey that would take another 5 days. "Why did you come?" Terrell asked. "Your people were quarantined. We made it clear you weren't welcome in the greater galaxy. You could have ignored our distress call." Anne was quiet for a moment. "You ever hear about a concept called humanity? It's where we got our species name. It means compassion, empathy, helping others even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous." She turned to look at him. "Your people are terrified of us, I get it. We're big, strong, aggressive. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. But that same world taught us something important." "What?" Terrell asked. "That we're stronger together. That protecting the weak isn't weakness, it's strength. That the measure of a civilization isn't how powerful it is, but how it treats those who can't defend themselves." Anne smiled slightly. "You needed help. We could provide it." The decision was simple. "The Galactic Union won't see it that way," Terrell warned. "You violated quarantine. There will be consequences. Let them come," Anne said. "We'll deal with politics later. Right now we're getting you home safely." An alarm suddenly blared through the ship. Anne's communicator crackled to life. "Captain to the bridge. We've got multiple contacts on long-range sensors. Ship profiles match Ravager Collective," Anne ran. Despite the heavy gravity, despite her exhaustion, she moved with frightening speed. Terrell tried to follow but fell behind immediately. By the time he reached the bridge, she was already in her command chair, reviewing tactical displays. 15 ships, her tactical officer reported. "They're forming an intercept course. Guess they're angry about what we did to their boarding parties." "Can we outrun them?" Anne asked. Not while escorting the luminous path, their ship is too damaged. Anne nodded slowly. Then we don't run. All hands to battle stations. Power up all weapon systems. Launch defensive drones. And someone get our Etherian friends to the most protected area of the ship. This is going to get rough. Terral felt his blood run cold. 15 Ravager ships against one human vessel. They were going to die. The Deathworlders had saved them only to perish protecting them. But Anne was smiling. It was a predator's smile showing those dangerous teeth. Helm. Position us between the Ravagers and the luminous path. All ships. This is Captain Frost. We've got company coming and they're not friendly. Remember your training. Remember Earth. And remember that we're the deadliest thing this galaxy has ever seen. Through the viewport, Terral watched the human crew prepare for battle. Not one of them looked afraid. They looked eager. The Ravager fleet emerged from jump space like sharks smelling blood in water. 15 warships, each one designed for intimidation and overwhelming firepower. Their hulls bore the marks of countless battles, scarred and brutal. These pirates had terrorized the peaceful species of the Galactic Union for decades, and no one had ever successfully fought back. Warlord Drex observed the human ship from his command throne. He was a Kragoth, a species that evolved as ambush predators on a high-gravity moon. At nearly 7 feet tall with 4 arms and natural armor plating, his people were among the most physically dangerous in known space. They served as the backbone of the Ravager Collective's military might. One ship, his tactical officer hissed. They have one ship protecting the damaged Etherian vessel. These are the creatures that killed 30 of our warriors during the boarding action, Drex rumbled. The ones from the Forbidden World. I want them taken alive if possible. The galaxy will pay fortunes to see Deathworlders in combat cages. They're not running, the sensor operator reported with confusion. They're positioning themselves between us and the prey ship. Drex laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. Foolish. Brave, but foolish. Begin attack pattern Delta. Target their engines first. I want them crippled, not destroyed. The Ravager fleet split into 3 groups, moving to surround the Defiant Hope. It was a standard tactic that had worked hundreds of times before. Overwhelming force from multiple vectors. No ship could defend against attacks from all directions simultaneously. Aboard the Defiant Hope, Anne Frost watched the enemy formation with experienced eyes. She had commanded vessels in Earth's corporate wars before humanity unified. She had seen battle tactics from a dozen different human military traditions. The Ravagers were using a basic encirclement maneuver that would have worked against any Galactic Union ship. But human ships were different. Tactical. Are the Etherians secured? She asked calmly. Yes, Captain. All 14 survivors are in the reinforced shelter on Deck 3. It's rated to survive a direct hit from nuclear weapons. Good. Weapons, I want firing solutions on all 15 targets. Focus on their engine sections. If we can cripple their mobility, they can't chase us. Ma'am, her first officer said quietly. Standard doctrine against superior numbers is to retreat. Standard Galactic Union doctrine, Anne corrected. Human doctrine is different. We're going to teach these pirates why Earth was quarantined. She activated ship-wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to engage a numerically superior force. They think we're easy prey because we're alone. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten someone under human protection. Make our ancestors proud. Frost out. In the shelter, the Etherian survivors clung to each other as the ship's gravity increased. The human vessel was accelerating at rates that would have torn the luminous path apart. How are they doing this? Paul gasped, feeling his lungs compress under the force. They're built for it, Dr. Lisa Martin said. She was with them, having volunteered to stay and monitor their health. Human bodies can withstand up to 5 times normal gravity for short periods. Fighter pilots train in 9 gravity environments. This is only 3. That's impossible, Lynn whispered. That's evolution on a death world, Lisa replied. Everything on Earth had to be tough or it died. The first weapons exchange lit up the void of space. The Ravagers opened fire with plasma cannons, beam weapons, and missile volleys. Enough firepower to vaporize a dozen standard vessels. The Defiant Hope took the hits head-on. Its shields flared brilliant blue, absorbing energy that should have overloaded them instantly. The armor plating beneath sparked and scorched but held. Human metallurgy was based on materials that could survive Earth's extreme conditions. They had alloys that could withstand volcanic heat. pressure that would exist deep in Earth's oceans, and impacts from hypervelocity micrometeors. Shields at 70%. Tactical reported. Armor holding. No hull breaches. Return fire, Anne ordered. The Defiant Hope's weapons were brutal and efficient. Railguns that used magnetic acceleration to fire solid metal slugs at percentages of light speed. Missile systems with explosive yields measured in gigatons. Focused energy weapons that could cut through standard ship armor like paper. The first Ravager ship to take a direct hit simply exploded. Its shields failed, its armor was penetrated, and its reactor went critical. The explosion destroyed the ship next to it. 2 down in the opening salvo. Drex roared in fury. Concentrate fire! All ships target that vessel simultaneously. The remaining 13 ships focused their weapons on the human vessel. The Defiant Hope shuddered under the combined assault. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 8. Shield generators overheating. Portside railgun offline. Damage report, and snapped. Shields at 30%. Hull integrity compromised in non-critical sections. We've got fires on multiple decks, but damage control teams are responding. Anne studied the tactical display. The Ravagers were closing in, thinking they had the advantage. They were wrong. Helm ramming speed on the lead vessel. All power to forward shields. Her bridge crew stared at her for a moment. Then they grinned. These were humans who understood what she was planning. The Defiant Hope accelerated directly at the largest Ravager ship. Drex's command vessel. The distance closed rapidly. Thousands of kilometers. Hundreds. The Ravagers fired everything they had, trying to stop the human ship's charge. At the last moment, Anne ordered, "Brace for impact." The 2 ships collided at relativistic speeds. The Ravager vessel crumpled like paper. Its forward section crushed inward, destroying half its decks instantly. The Defiant Hope's forward armor plating shattered, but the ship's internal structure held. The reinforced frame, designed to survive impacts from space debris at high velocity, absorbed the shock. The human vessel emerged from the collision badly damaged, but still functional. The Ravager command ship listed dead in space, its spine broken. 3 down. Engineering status. Anne demanded. Forward shields are gone. Hull breach on decks 1 through 4. But the engines are still good and we've got weapons. We can keep fighting. Then we keep fighting. The battle became a brutal demonstration of human warfare. The Defiant Hope used tactics that no Galactic Union captain would consider. It used debris from destroyed ships as cover. It fired weapons at point-blank range, accepting damage to deal more. It targeted enemy ships that were already disabled. Not out of mercy, but to prevent them from potentially recovering. Human military doctrine was simple. When fighting, fight to win completely and permanently. 30 minutes into the engagement, only 6 Ravager ships remained operational. They broke formation and tried to retreat. The human vessel pursued, its crew working frantically to repair damage while maintaining weapons fire. In the shelter, the Etherian survivors listened to the battle through translated ship communications. They heard the calm professionalism of human voices coordinating attacks, reporting damage, saving lives. No panic, no surrender, just determination. They're going to win, Terrell whispered in disbelief. 15 against 1, and they're going to win. Not just win, Paul said, staring at a status display. They're going to destroy the entire enemy fleet. The last Ravager ship exploded 40 minutes after the battle began. 6 enemy vessels destroyed outright, 9 crippled and abandoned by their crews. 0 Ravager survivors. The Defiant Hope, battered and burning, maintained position between the enemy wrecks and the luminous path. Anne Frost pulled up the casualty reports. 12 crew members dead from explosive decompression when Deck 4 breached. 31 injured, 6 critically. Her beautiful ship was held together by temporary repairs and the skill of her engineering team. But they had won. "Captain," her communication officer said, "we're receiving a transmission. Multiple sources. Galactic Union peacekeeping vessels. They're demanding to know what happened here." Anne looked at the tactical display showing a dozen new contacts approaching. Official vessels flagged with Union authority markers. "Took them long enough," she muttered. "Open a channel. Let's explain to the galaxy why you don't attack people under human protection." In the shelter, Dr. Lisa Martin helped the Etherian survivors to their feet. The gravity had returned to normal. "The battle was over. You saved us again," Nira said softly. "You were outnumbered, outgunned, and you still saved us. That's what humans do," Lisa replied simply. We don't know how to quit. The Etherians looked at her with expressions that were no longer pure fear. Now there was something else mixed in. Wonder, respect, and perhaps the beginning of understanding. Fleet Admiral Oren of the Galactic Union Peacekeeping Force arrived at the battlefield 3 hours after the fighting ended. His flagship, the Harmonious Dawn, represented everything the Union believed in. Smooth curves, efficient design, and absolutely no weapons beyond defensive systems. The Union had maintained peace through diplomacy and economic pressure for 3 centuries. Violence was a relic of their primitive past. What Oren saw through his viewport challenged everything he believed. Debris floated in organized chaos. 15 Ravager warships either destroyed or crippled beyond repair. And in the center, still protecting the damaged Etherian research vessel, sat a human ship that looked like it had fought its way through hell and come out the other side. "Get me a communication channel with that vessel," Oren ordered. He was a Sethran, an avian species with brilliant blue plumage and sharp, intelligent eyes. His people had been among the founding members of the Galactic Union. And someone explained to me how one ship defeated 15. His tactical officer, a young Taurian female named Sarah, studied the sensor readings with confusion. "Admiral, the damage patterns don't make sense. The human ship took direct hits that should have destroyed it. Multiple shield failures, hull breaches, system overloads. But it kept fighting." "Deathworlders," Oren muttered. The word carried weight in Union space. Earth had been discovered 40 years ago, observed from a safe distance and immediately quarantined. The assessment reports had been terrifying. A species that evolved in 12 times standard gravity, survived ice ages and asteroid impacts, developed thousands of different weapons before achieving spaceflight, and somehow still managed to unify into a single planetary government. The Union Council had voted unanimously to leave humans alone. Now they were here, in Union space, having just annihilated a Ravager fleet. Channel open. "Admiral, communications reported. Attention human vessel. This is Fleet Admiral Oren of the Galactic Union Peacekeeping Force. You have violated quarantine protocols and engaged in unauthorized military action. Explain yourself immediately." There was a pause. Then a voice replied, translated through their universal communication system. Female, calm, with an undertone of exhaustion. "This is Captain Anne Frost of the United Earth Coalition ship Defiant Hope. We responded to a distress call from the Etherian vessel Luminous Path. They were under attack. We provided assistance as required by basic humanitarian principles. The Ravager vessels engaged us first. We defended ourselves. You destroyed 15 ships," Oren said, trying to keep his voice steady. "They should have retreated after the first 5, Frost replied. "We gave them opportunities to disengage. They chose to continue fighting. We obliged them." Oren felt his feathers ruffle involuntarily. The casual tone in which this human discussed such violence was disturbing. "You will remain in position. A Union diplomatic team is being prepared. There will be consequences for your actions." "We're not going anywhere," Frost said. "We'll wait for your diplomats. But make it quick. My ship needs repairs and we have 14 Etherian survivors who need proper medical care." The channel closed. Oren turned to his staff. "Get me everything we have on human psychology, military capability, and cultural values. And find out how they even received that distress call." The Luminous Path was broadcasting on Union frequencies. Over the next several hours, the situation grew more complicated. The Etherian survivors were brought aboard the Harmonious Dawn for medical treatment and debriefing. Oren watched through observation windows as they were carried on hover stretchers, their bodies unable to handle even the Union standard gravity of 1 standard unit. Commander Terrell gave his report while lying flat on a specially adjusted medical bed. His voice was weak but clear. "The humans arrived exactly 3 days after we sent our distress signal. They fought through 6 Ravager vessels to reach us. Their boarding teams eliminated hostile forces with efficiency I've never seen. Then they protected us at great cost to themselves." Terrell paused. "Admiral, 15 Ravager ships came for revenge. The humans fought them all alone and won. They used ramming tactics," Sarah added, reading from her analysis report. "They deliberately collided with an enemy vessel. No Union captain would consider such a maneuver. The risk of catastrophic structural failure is absolute. Unless your ship is built to survive it," Oren said thoughtfully. He pulled up the data files on Earth. The planet's surface gravity was 1.2 standard. Its atmospheric pressure was higher than most inhabited worlds. Its average temperature swung between extremes that would kill most species. And its native life forms were universally aggressive. They're not just from a death world, he realized. They're the product of a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They evolved to take punishment that would destroy us. Medical Officer Nira was interviewed next. She described the human ship's interior, the heavy gravity, the redundant systems, the casual way human crew members perform tasks that would require powered equipment for any other species. One of them offered me something called coffee, Nira said. The medical scanner identified it as a poison, specifically a neurotoxin that causes cardiac arrest in most known species. The human drank it casually. Said it helped her wake up in the morning. Oren's communication officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving additional transmissions. Multiple Ravager vessels are fleeing the sector. They're broadcasting warnings. Translating now. The officer's face went pale. They're calling the humans death incarnate. They're telling all Ravager forces to avoid Earthships at all costs. A single engagement broke the Ravager Collective's hold on this sector, Oren said slowly. One human ship accomplished what the Union's peacekeeping force couldn't do in decades. 2 days later, the Galactic Union Council convened an emergency session. The debate chamber was filled with representatives from 40 different species, each with their own perspective on the human situation. Counselor Prime Wex, an ancient Taurian who had served for 60 years, opened the discussion. We face an unprecedented situation. The quarantined species from Earth has violated our borders, engaged in combat operations, and fundamentally altered the balance of power in the outer sectors. They saved Etherian lives, argued Representative Hira, speaking for the Etherian government. My people owe them a debt we can never repay. The humans risked everything to help strangers. They're too dangerous, countered Representative Cole from the Mercantile Guild. One ship defeated 15. Imagine what a human fleet could do. They could conquer the entire Union. They didn't come to conquer, Representative Mora from the Research Collective pointed out. They came to rescue. They responded to a distress call that wasn't even meant for them. That speaks to their character. The debate continued for hours. Arguments about threat assessment, ethical obligations, military capability, and diplomatic precedent filled the chamber. Finally, Wex called for order. We cannot ignore them, he declared. They're here, and they've proven they can defeat threats we couldn't handle. I propose a compromise. Limited contact. Provisional status. We acknowledge their rescue of the Luminous Path while maintaining restrictions on their expansion. And if they refuse these restrictions, Call demanded, then we learn to live with neighbors we can't control, Wex said simply. Because one thing is clear, we cannot force Deathworlders to do anything they don't choose to do. The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would be offered restricted membership in the Galactic Union, limited trade rights, diplomatic recognition, but continued monitoring and travel restrictions. Fleet Admiral Oren delivered the Council's decision personally to Captain Frost. He transported to the Defiant Hope, experiencing the heavy gravity and oppressive atmosphere for the first time. He could barely stand upright. The humans moved around him with ease, their casual strength on full display. Anne Frost received him in what remained of her conference room. Half the ceiling was temporary repair patches. The furniture was bolted down emergency seating. But she offered him water and spoke with courtesy. Your people are offering us second-class citizenship, she said after hearing the terms. Membership with strings attached. The Council is afraid, Oren admitted. You demonstrated capabilities that threaten our understanding of military power. We've lived in peace for so long that we forgot what warriors look like. We didn't come here to scare you, Anne said. We came because someone needed help. That's all. I know, Oren replied. I read the psychological profiles. Humans have this concept you call compassion. You help others even when it costs you. Even when it's dangerous. It's admirable. But it's also terrifying because it means you'll take risks no rational species would accept. Anne smiled slightly. We prefer to think of it as having principles. Will you accept the Council's terms? Oren asked. Anne considered. For now, we'll take your restricted membership. We'll play by your rules. But understand something, Admiral. We didn't ask to be quarantined. We didn't ask to be feared. We just want to exist in this galaxy alongside everyone else. And if someone else sends a distress call, we'll answer it. Restrictions or not, Oren felt his feathers ruffle again. It wasn't quite a threat, but it was definitely a promise. I'll convey your acceptance to the council, he said. As Oren left the human ship, he looked back at the damaged vessel. It was already being repaired, human engineering crews working at speeds that seemed impossible. In 3 days, it would be combat-ready again. The galaxy had changed. The Deathworlders were no longer isolated, and everyone would have to learn to adapt. 3 months passed since the battle that changed everything. News of the human rescue spread through the Galactic Union faster than any official communication could travel. Stories grew with each retelling. Some said the humans fought 100 ships. Others claimed they were invincible warriors who felt no pain. The truth was dramatic enough without embellishment, but fear and fascination amplified every detail. The Defiant Hope remained in Etherian space under the new provisional agreement. Captain Anne Frost had returned to Earth for reassignment, leaving Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen in command. Sarah was younger than Anne, only 34, with sharp features and patient eyes. She understood her role wasn't just military anymore. It was diplomatic. The ship had been fully repaired, its battle scars erased by human engineering efficiency. Now it served as an unofficial embassy, a bridge between humanity and the rest of the galaxy, a bridge many species were still too afraid to cross. Science officer. Lynn from the Luminous Path changed that. She submitted a formal request to the Etherian government. Assignment to the Defiant Hope as a cultural liaison. The request caused heated debate in the Etherian Assembly. Sending one of their people to live among Deathworlders seemed like insanity to many representatives. They saved us, Lynn argued before the Assembly, her voice steady despite her nervousness. They risked everything for strangers. They died protecting us, and we repay them by continuing to fear them. I want to understand who they really are. I want to learn from them. The Assembly approved her request by a narrow margin. 3 days later, Lynn boarded the Defiant Hope carrying a small bag of personal items and a heart full of determination. Commander Sarah Chen met her at the airlock. The gravity adjustment hit Lynn immediately. She stumbled and Sarah caught her with one hand. The casual strength was startling, but Lynn forced herself not to flinch. "Welcome aboard," Sarah said, releasing her carefully. "We've prepared quarters for you with adjusted gravity. 0.8 standard, still heavier than you're used to, but we can't go much lower without compromising ship systems." "I'll adapt," Lynn said, trying to sound confident. Sarah smiled. It was a gentler expression than Lynn expected from a human. "You will. Humans are adaptable, but we're not the only ones. Come on, let me show you around." The tour was overwhelming. Everything on the ship was designed for beings who were stronger, faster, and more durable than Lynn could imagine. Simple doors were heavy enough to crush her if they malfunctioned. Standard railings were positioned at heights comfortable for taller frames. Even the lighting was adjusted to a spectrum that humans found natural, but that Lynn found slightly harsh. Yet everywhere she went, crew members greeted her with warmth. They slowed down when walking near her. They spoke clearly, making sure the translator caught every word. They were trying so hard not to scare her that Lynn found herself relaxing despite the alien environment. "Why are you being so nice?" she finally asked Sarah during a meal in the officers' mess. Lynn was eating specially prepared Etherian food, while Sarah consumed something called a hamburger that contained actual animal flesh. Sarah chewed thoughtfully, swallowed, then answered, "Because you're brave. You came here voluntarily when most of your people won't even look at us without shaking. That deserves respect." "I'm terrified," Lynn admitted. "Every instinct tells me I'm surrounded by predators." "You are," Sarah said bluntly. "Humans are predators. We evolved that way, but we're also social creatures who form bonds outside our species. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We keep cats as companions even though they're miniature predators themselves. We're very good at making friends with things that should be our enemies." Over the following weeks, Lynn learned the truth of that statement. The human crew adopted her as an unofficial mascot, though they would have been embarrassed to hear it described that way. They showed her human entertainment, explained their history, taught her about Earth's incredible diversity. Engineer David became her primary guide. He was patient and enthusiastic, excited to share his culture with someone who genuinely wanted to learn. "This is called music," he said one evening, playing something he called classical symphony. The sounds were unlike anything in Etherian culture. Complex, emotional, building to crescendos that made Lynn's heart race. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "but also frightening." So much passion. That's humanity, David said. We feel everything intensely. Love, anger, joy, sorrow. Earth tried to beat it out of us, but we kept it. That intensity is what makes us human. Lynn began sending regular reports back to Athari. Not dry official documents, but personal observations that were shared on public networks. Her writings changed how Atharians viewed humans. She wrote about watching human children in recorded videos, how they played with such energy and laughter. She described human art, the thousands of different styles from hundreds of cultures. She explained human philosophy, the debates about ethics and meaning that humans had pursued for millennia. They're not monsters, she wrote. They're people. Different from us, yes. Stronger and more dangerous, certainly. But they love. They dream. They create beauty. They're worthy of understanding, not just fear. The reports resonated. Other species began requesting similar cultural exchanges. The Union Council, seeing an opportunity to better understand the humans, approved a limited exchange program. Medical Officer Nira was the second Atharian to volunteer. She arrived with extensive questions about human medicine, eager to understand how Deathworlder biology functioned. Dr. Lisa Martin welcomed her into the medical bay with genuine enthusiasm. "You want to see something amazing?" she asked, pulling up a holographic display of human anatomy. "This is our skeletal system," Lisa explained. "Notice how dense the bones are. They have to support our weight in high gravity. And see these points here? Those are where our muscles attach. We have about 650 muscles, and they're packed with fast twitch fibers for explosive movement." Nira studied the display with fascination. "Your heart is enormous, has to be. We need to pump blood through a larger body against higher gravity. Our hearts are about 4 times the size of yours relative to body mass. And we have this thing called adrenaline." Lisa brought up a chemical structure. "When we're threatened or excited, our bodies release this hormone. It increases our strength by up to 40%, dulls pain reception, and speeds up our reaction time. You have a built-in combat enhancement system," Nira said in awe. "We call it the fight-or-flight response. Our ancestors needed it to survive." Lisa paused. "But here's the interesting part. We also have extremely high levels of oxytocin and other bonding chemicals. We're wired for both violence and compassion. Both parts make us who we are." Nira spent months studying human medicine. She learned about their incredible healing capabilities, their resistance to infections, their ability to survive injuries that would kill most species. But she also learned about human vulnerability. They could die from simple falls if they hit wrong. They could be poisoned by thousands of common substances. They suffered from diseases that attacked their own bodies. "You're not invincible," she reported to the Atharian Medical Council. They just refused to accept limitations. Where we would declare something impossible, humans figure out how to do it anyway. Meanwhile, Engineer Paul worked with David to understand human technology. The Atharians had achieved spaceflight through elegant, efficient designs. Human technology was different. Robust, redundant, built to survive the worst possible conditions. "This is a human spacesuit," David explained, showing Paul the heavy armor. "It can survive direct exposure to vacuum, protect against radiation, maintain life support for 72 hours, and double as combat armor if needed. It weighs 90 kilograms. We wear them like clothing." Paul tried to lift just the helmet. He couldn't. "How do you move in these?" "Training and stronger muscles," David said with a shrug. "Also, we have powered assist systems built in. But even without power, a human can function in these suits. They're designed so that if everything electronic fails, the wearer can still manually operate every system." "You plan for total system failure," Paul observed. "We plan for everything to go wrong simultaneously," David corrected. "Because on Earth it usually did." The cultural exchange expanded. A Taurian diplomat named Kira arrived, studying human social structures. A Sethran artist named Pell came to understand human creativity. Each visitor arrived frightened and left changed, carrying new perspectives back to their people. The Defiant Hope became more than a warship. It became proof that humans could integrate with galactic society, that they could be gentle despite their strength, that they chose cooperation over conquest. But not everyone was happy with this development. In the depths of space, remnants of the Ravager collective gathered. Warlord Drex had survived the battle, rescued from his crippled ship by loyal followers. His body was scarred, his pride shattered, but his hatred burned bright. "The Deathworlders made us look weak," He growled to his assembled captains. The galaxy mocks us. Our empire crumbles because one human ship defeated our fleet. What can we do? One captain asked. They're too strong to fight directly. Drex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Then we don't fight them directly. We hurt what they protect. The Etherians, the weak species the humans defend. We show the galaxy that befriending Deathworlders only brings death. His claws traced a star map, pointing to a small agricultural colony on the edge of Etherian space. We start here. We make an example, and we make sure the humans know it's their fault. The remnant Ravager fleet, 15 ships strong, turned toward their target, toward innocent lives, toward the spark that would test whether humanity's compassion could survive the harsh reality of galactic warfare. The agricultural colony of New Hope lived up to its name. It was the newest Etherian settlement, established only 5 years ago, populated by families seeking a simpler life away from the crowded homeworld. 7,000 Etherians tended crops, raised native livestock, and built a peaceful community under the light of a gentle yellow star. They had no weapons. No military presence, no reason to expect danger. The Ravager fleet dropped out of jump space directly above the colony without warning. 15 warships against farmers. Drex had chosen his target well. This would be a massacre, and the entire galaxy would know that befriending humans brought only pain. Begin bombardment, Drex ordered. Destroy everything. Leave no survivors. But before his weapons could fire, alarms screamed across every Ravager bridge. 3 human ships had appeared between the fleet and the colony, not just the Defiant Hope, but 2 additional vessels that had been deployed to other sectors, the Unyielding Dawn and the Final Stand. Together, they represented 600 human warriors and enough firepower to level a continent. Ravager vessels. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Coalition. The transmission came through clearly. You are targeting a protected civilian population. Stand down immediately or we will engage. Drex felt rage overwhelm his tactical sense. They're bluffing. 3 ships against 15. We have numerical superiority. His tactical officer, who had survived the previous battle, spoke hesitantly. Warlord, they defeated 15 of us before with only 1 ship. That was a surprise. We know their tactics now. Drex slammed his fist on the command console. All ships, attack formation. Show these Deathworlders they're not invincible. The battle began with the Ravagers opening volley, focused fire on a single human ship, trying to overwhelm its defenses through concentration. The Unyielding Dawn took the brunt of the assault, its shields flaring brilliantly but holding. The human response was coordinated and brutal. The 3 ships didn't scatter or defend individually. They moved as a unit, covering each other's weak points, concentrating their fire on the most dangerous Ravager vessels first. Aboard the Defiant Hope, Lynn watched the battle from the protected observation deck, where the Etherian visitors had been secured. Science Officer Nira stood beside her, along with Engineer Paul and the other cultural exchange participants. They had a direct view of the combat through reinforced transparent aluminum windows. They're protecting us again, Nira whispered. The colony, the exchange visitors, all of us. They put themselves in danger to keep us safe. Lynn watched as the Final Stand performed a maneuver she had seen in records of the previous battle. It accelerated directly at a Ravager cruiser, firing all weapons. At the last moment, it didn't ram, but instead passed within meters of the enemy hull. Its point defense system shredding the Ravager's armor at point-blank range. The precision was terrifying. The coordination was beautiful. And the effectiveness was absolute. On New Hope's surface, colonists watched the battle through their emergency shelter's sensors. Parents held children who couldn't understand why the sky was full of fire. Elders who remembered the old stories of violence clutched each other, wondering if their peaceful era was ending. Then they saw the human ships. Not retreating, not fleeing, fighting with desperate determination to keep the battle away from the colony. Colony Administrator Helm activated the emergency broadcast system. Attention all residents. The humans are protecting us. They're fighting to keep us safe. Whatever happens today, remember this. Remember that when we needed help, the Deathworlders stood between us and death. The battle raged for 2 hours. 2 Ravager ships were destroyed outright. 4 more were crippled. The human vessels sustained heavy damage but remained operational. The Unyielding Dawn lost its port engines and drifted on auxiliary power. The Final Stand had hull breaches across 3 decks. The Defiant Hope's shields failed twice but regenerated each time. Drex watched his fleet crumble for the second time. Watched his warriors flee rather than face human weapons. Watched his dreams of revenge turn to ash. He had 9 functional ships left. The humans had 3 damaged vessels and unbreakable determination. "Warlord, we must retreat," his tactical officer pleaded. "We cannot win this." Something broke in Drex at that moment. Not his courage, but his sanity. He couldn't accept another defeat. Couldn't face the shame. If he couldn't destroy the humans, he would destroy what they protected. "All ships arm nuclear warheads," he ordered. "Target the colony directly. If we can't win, neither can they." The tactical officer stared at him. "That's genocide. The Galactic Union will hunt us forever." "They already do," Drex snarled. "Fire." 8 nuclear missiles launched from the remaining Ravager ships, each one powerful enough to sterilize a continent. Together, they could exterminate every living thing on New Hope's surface. The colony had no defenses, no shelters that could withstand such weapons. 7,000 Etherians had 90 seconds to live. Commander Sarah Chen saw the missile launches and felt time slow down. She had trained for this scenario in the academy. The nightmare situation every military commander feared, when you couldn't save everyone. When you had to choose. "All ships intercept pattern Omega," she ordered, her voice steady despite the sick feeling in her stomach. "Get between those missiles and the colony. Use our ships as shields if necessary." "Commander, we can't stop all 8, her tactical officer reported. "We can intercept 5, maybe 6, but at least 2 will get through." "Then we stop the ones we can," Sarah said, "and we take the hit from the ones we can't." The 3 human ships moved with precision. Point defense systems engaged, destroying 3 missiles in the first volley. The unyielding Dawn, already crippled, positioned itself in the path of 2 more missiles and detonated them with close-range weapons fire. The explosions consumed the ship. 400 human lives vaporized instantly to save Etherian strangers. The final stand intercepted another missile. The Defiant Hope destroyed 1 more with railgun fire. 1 missile remained. It screamed toward the colony, unstoppable. Sarah made her decision in microseconds. "Helm emergency acceleration. Get us between that warhead and the surface. All hands brace for nuclear detonation." The Defiant Hope accelerated faster than its damaged engines should have allowed. Engineers bypassed safety systems, pushed reactors past critical limits, demanded the impossible from failing systems. The ship moved between the missile and New Hope with seconds to spare. The nuclear warhead detonated against the Defiant Hope's forward shields at a distance of 30 kilometers from the colony. The explosion was apocalyptic. The electromagnetic pulse knocked out communications across the planet. The shockwave shattered windows in the colony's buildings, and the human ship took the full force of the blast. The forward section of the Defiant Hope simply ceased to exist. Decks 1 through 6 were gone. 7 through 10 were exposed to vacuum. Over 100 crew members died instantly. Another 50 were wounded. The ship's spine held by emergency structural fields and desperate engineering. But the colony survived. On the surface, Etherians emerged from shelters to see a human ship burning in their sky. A ship that had placed itself between death and innocent lives. A ship that had chosen to be destroyed rather than let harm reach them. Colony Administrator Helen transmitted on all frequencies. "Human vessel Defiant Hope, this is New Hope Colony. You saved us, all 7,000 of us. We're alive because you were willing to die." In the Defiant Hope's auxiliary command center, Sarah Chen pulled herself from the deck. Blood ran down her face from a head wound. Her left arm hung useless. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically at backup stations. "Status," she croaked. "Ship is functional, but barely. We've lost over half our crew. Life support is critical. We need immediate evacuation." The damage control officer's voice shook. "Commander, we're not making it home." "Yes, we are," Sarah said firmly. "Get me engineering. Get me medical. Get me anyone who's still alive and can work. We're not dying here." The remaining Ravager ships, seeing the devastation and the human ship still somehow operational, fled. Drex's vessel jumped to hyperspace, running from the galaxy's judgment. The battle was over. Help arrived within hours. Galactic Union ships responding to the distress calls. Medical vessels, engineering support, and 3 more human ships that had crossed into Union space the moment they heard the Defiant Hope was under attack. The rescue operation took 2 days. The surviving human crew were transported to Union medical facilities. The Etherian cultural exchange participants refused to leave the humans, staying to help however they could despite their physical limitations. Lynn found Sarah in a medical bay, her injuries treated but her spirit wounded. The human commander stared at a list of the dead. 137 names. People she had served with, laughed with, protected. "I'm sorry," Lynn said quietly, not knowing what else to say. Sarah looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Don't be sorry. We chose this. We knew the risk. And we'd do it again." "Why?" Lynn asked. "Why sacrifice so much for people who aren't even your species?" Sarah smiled tiredly. "Because someone has to. Because strength without compassion is just cruelty. Because the universe is cold and empty enough without us adding to it." She touched the list of names. They died so children they'd never met could grow up. That's not a tragedy. That's what makes us human. News of the Battle of New Hope spread across the galaxy faster than anything before it. The images were everywhere. Human ships shielding civilians. The unyielding Dawn deliberately taking missile hits. The Defiant Hope moving into a nuclear blast to protect strangers. The Ravager Collective collapsed within weeks. No one wanted to join an organization that attacked children. More importantly, no one wanted to fight humans after seeing what they would sacrifice to protect others. The Galactic Union Council held an emergency session. The debate was short. Counselor Prime Wex stood before the assembly and spoke with uncharacteristic emotion. "We quarantined humanity because we feared their strength. We were wrong. We should have feared our own weakness. These Deathworlders, these dangerous predators from a planet of nightmares, taught us something we forgot during our centuries of peace. That strength exists to protect the weak. That power has meaning only when used for others. That courage is choosing to do right even when it costs everything." The vote was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Union. No restrictions. No monitoring. Full rights and privileges. 6 months later, a memorial was unveiled on New Hope. A sculpture of 3 human ships positioned protectively around a planet. The names of every human who died in the battle were carved into the base. Etherian children learned those names in school. Learned what those strangers had sacrificed for them. Commander Sarah Chen, recovered from her injuries and promoted to captain, attended the ceremony. She stood before 7,000 Etherians who owed their lives to her crew. They sang their traditional songs of gratitude, a sound like bells chiming in harmony. When they finished, Sarah spoke. Her voice carried across the assembled crowd through translation systems. "We didn't save you because we expected thanks. We saved you because it was right. Because we're human, and we don't abandon people. We never have. We never will." She looked at the memorial, at the names of friends who would never go home. They gave everything. Honor them by remembering that strength and compassion aren't opposites. They're partners. And together, they make civilizations worth saving. Science Officer Lynn, now officially appointed as Earth's first alien ambassador, stood beside Sarah. She had spent nearly a year with humans now, had learned their languages, their cultures, their dreams. She was no longer afraid. "The galaxy called them Deathworlders," Lynn said in her speech. "They called themselves human. Both names are true. They come from death, but they chose life. They evolved for war, but they pursue peace. They're the most dangerous species in known space, but they're also the most compassionate." She looked at Sarah with genuine affection. A misrouted distress call summoned them. But friendship keeps them here. And we're all better for it. As the ceremony ended and the Etherians celebrated with traditional dances and music, Sarah received a message from Earth. The United Earth Coalition was launching a new program. 50 ships would be deployed across Union space, not as conquerors, not as occupiers, as protectors. The message ended with a simple statement: "We don't leave people behind." Sarah looked up at the stars, at the vast galaxy that was no longer closed to humanity. Somewhere out there, someone else might send a distress call, might need help that only humans could provide, might need someone willing to stand between innocent lives and death. And humans would answer, because that's what they did, because that's what they were, not monsters from a death world, but people who refused to let strength become cruelty. The galaxy had learned to fear humans. Now it was learning something more important. The galaxy was learning to trust them, to welcome them, to stand beside them. And humanity, the species quarantined for being too dangerous, had found its place in the stars, not as feared outsiders, but as chosen protectors, as friends willing to sacrifice everything, as humans.